Hello, welcome to our Wellbeing Space. As you may be aware, I'm very passionate about wellbeing in schools. I've had the privilege of working at many fine schools over the last 4 or 5 years, and how each one of those schools has approached wellbeing is something that's impacted me. So, it's something I'm very passionate about, and it's something that I'm studying at university. Here's an opportunity just to share with you what our space looks like on our OneNote, and maybe talk you through sort of the vision of where we're headed. So probably first and foremost is this is our space here. So inside on the side there on our 5.2 notebook, you can see our wellbeing tab there, and inside there, that's where you'll find all this information. Please, at your leisure. I know each family is going to approach wellbeing in a different way, and I know that you guys are all doing some amazing stuff. I'm just going to share with you what I do with my two girls, what we do as a family, and then what we're doing in the classroom, and what this hopefully will give you a bit of perspective on how we approach wellbeing in our class, but also to share with you some of the vocabulary that I'm sharing with your children. So hopefully you guys can talk about that stuff together. Okay, so first, our first page, the landing page, really is our Friendship Five, and look, this was created using the Covey, highly effective habits, and what it comes back to is it's just creating an opportunity for how those kids make connection. We know that connection is what it's all about in that wellbeing space. We know that kids who feel disconnected are the kids that's probably struggle the most, and they're the kids that we need to support. I've given a bit of a 5 ways of making friends. Sort of this came about more when I was working at my previous school with the 180 boys that were there, and I talked about sort of the code or the guide to making 179 mates. There's 180 of them in total. So things that they could do often, and things like smiling. I've sort of compacted that now into 5 steps, and this is what we're sharing with those kids, and we're talking to those kids who it's almost like a coach's role of trying to get those kids who aren't making connections with other kids. Here's what we're asking them to do. Okay. Connection. So Johan Hari is a fantastic writer about making connection and the importance of people making connections in their community. I've just got some quotes there and what it looks like from a school's perspective. But a fantastic resource. He wrote a book called I've just forgotten. I Lost Connections. That's written on the top there. It was a fantastic book for talking about how people find those connections and how we can navigate them and the importance of those connections. There's another quote there by Brene Brown. She talks a lot about vulnerability, and I'll go into a little bit more of that in the next page. So over here is lots of things about being vulnerable. I say to my students all the time that we make mistakes, and especially kids who are struggling to meet the standards in a classroom, they're going to make mistakes. And I know that when I was ahead of Year 5, that was one of the first things that I said to the kids was that we make mistakes. We've just got to we own up to them and we move forward. We take ownership of our behaviour. And Brene Brown is a fantastic person who talks about the power of being vulnerable, of saying, yeah, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, I'm not perfect. Really powerful. My wife loves Brene Brown, and because it talks about, everything's not perfect. It doesn't need to be perfect. In fact, sometimes we like to see the things that aren't always working. We're all works in progress, and that's certainly something that's important inside primary schools because kids really do set those standards for themselves quite high. And when they don't always meet those standards themselves, they can get quite down on themselves. So she's a fantastic resource for parents. I wouldn't be showing these ones to kids. There's no swearing; they're very appropriate, but it's probably a bit heavy. It's really good for parents. So probably where we're headed now is spending some time when was with Lee Waters. Dr. Lee Waters is a fantastic person in the fact that she talks about positive education and finding positive. So she wrote a book called The Strength of Switch. Incredible. And I got an opportunity to work with Dr. Lee during my time at Iona College and implementing their wellness program or their wellbeing program there and making sure that their visible wellbeing was present everywhere. It had to be everywhere. So we wanted to make sure that it was visible, that these kids, the boys knew exactly what they're looking for. So she talks a lot about character strengths and the importance of people identifying what their character strengths are and identifying them in each other as well. So, in the morning when the kids come to my classroom, The greeting will be, you may need to, give me a fist bump, thanks COVID, fist bump or a foot tap, and then tell me what your character strength is, or something that you've done. So that we sort of merge that into embedded that into how our daily proceedings are. It could be, what is your character strength? How have you supported one of your friends today? So that sort of thing, making sure that's very visible is very important. So we've got some, displays in the classroom as well, where the kids have done some mindful colouring in and things like that. So amazing resource. And if you want to click through here, there's what they all are there. There's all the character strengths there. Got a little bit of a wellbeing activity that we do with kids as well, and we look at our outside, personal traits. What do we see on the outside, and what do we see on the inside? So we've got our character strengths on the outside here, but getting kids to actually look at what they like about themselves was really interesting, because kids are very quick to point out what they don't like about themselves, and that's something we really need to focus on. I think in this year, I think we're addressing that. But it was great to see kids finally came around and start talking about things that they like about themselves. I've got a nice smile. I like my ears, things like that. It's great. Okay. So we go on to probably one of my favourite things in the whole world is the Resilience Project. Hugh Van Cuylenberg is incredible. So he has a vulnerability podcast that he has. It's called The Imperfects. It's amazing, and I think every single person in the world would get something out of this. He talks about GEM. So he wrote a book called The Resilience Project. He's a primary school teacher, got a chance to travel overseas and see what it was like over there. And he talks about the importance of GEM, so gratitude, empathy, and mindfulness, and says, to be happy, to be truly happy, we need to be grateful for what we've got in our lives and think about what we have. Be empathetic towards other people, and showing empathy. So, I understand how that situation might make someone else feel. I understand what my words and my actions might make someone else feel, and empathy, supporting their friends and those people around them. And again, that makes us happy. So by supporting others makes us happy. It's a really powerful thing. Mindfulness, and the importance of mindfulness. This is one I never really did very much of. Was using mindfulness. So we use Smiling Minds in the classroom, which is a great resource just to get the kids to breathe and come in after lunch and break down, sort of just slow down and breathe. Is fantastic. Do some mindfulness colouring in and things like that. This is an activity that we've done with the kids. They're writing a formal letter of gratitude to their favourite people, which is their parents. And this was a great opportunity for kids just to think about, I've got this person that does all these amazing things for me. And it was great to see. Some kids even got quite emotional when they were talking about, well, it's often thought about what their parents do for them, especially on the weekends when they take them to sport and travel to all these different areas. And I hope that landed well with parents in my classroom too, because those kids really loved it. I didn't give them a lot of structure. I told them what the first and second paragraph would be about, but the kids actually came up with those things themselves. So definitely don't want to take away that from our amazing kids. But it was a great opportunity for them to talk about that stuff and talk about their favourite people. I've got an online sort of gratitude journal type thing here. So going through the questions. So each night when I put my little Addie down, I'll lie in bed with her and we'll go through these questions together. So right now, how are you feeling? What are the 3 things that you love about today? What is something you're excited about tomorrow? It just means that the final thought that she has when she goes off to sleep is something that's happy. She's not worried about something, or if she is worried about something, she tells me it, and then we come up with a structure of how we can fix that. So again, each question's different for each night. The kids can copy and paste that straight into their personal OneNote book, and they can change the week and the date and things like that. But it's very powerful. That was sort of adapted from the Resilience Project. I've got my own journal that I fill out every single night. I sort of got into it. I'm a massive Richmond Tigers fan. He worked with the Richmond Tigers. He worked with Dustin Martin. And through some of those things, Dustin Martin has done a resilience journal for, I think it's over 600 days in a row now. And he believes that's what turned his, not only his playing career, but him personally and professionally around, which I think is exceptional. Over on the side, you've got exercise, rate your exercise today out of 10, diet out of 10, and then did you practice mindfulness? There's a bit of a mindfulness lesson that we do here. This is a fantastic book. And it goes through gratitude and what gratitude might look like in a picture book. We've read that in class. It's a great resource. But again, here's some questions here that you might want to just address with your kids once in a while. and they can fill that out. You can print that. So I've got a copy of that there. There's a PDF sitting somewhere. I'll have that sitting just here, and you can print that out if you wish. It's probably the birthplace for both of these things, Lee Waters and Hugh, was a gentleman by the name of Martin Seligman, and he was incredible. He sort of was the founder of positive education, and Dr. Lee talks very highly of him. And he sort of led the PERMA model, and talking about how people could be truly happy. So he's paving the way for that positive education. This is his model here. It's incredible. It's just incredible. So talking about things that we celebrate, how do we what makes us feel good? What makes us engaged in things? A relationship. Who brings us joy in our relationships? Talking about the meaning and our accomplishment. There's another vitality at the very end. So how we're eating, are we exercising, things like that brings us really happiness. So down here, there's a breakdown of what each of those mean. Here's some fantastic books. So he wrote a book called Flourish. I highly recommend that book. It's quite interesting. There's one called Flow, Authentic Happiness. And they're fantastic resource. I haven't read the bottom three books, but the top two I have. They're just a great resource for how we navigate things. There's some other great books. Grit by Angela Duckworth is a fantastic resource as well. He actually designed the VIA Institute, Character Institute. So, and this was a really, he designed this. So this goes through and actually you can fill out an online questionnaire. It tells you which of these character strengths you have. Again, probably this was born for me from my work with Dr. Lee Waters at Iona, and bringing in the character strengths model. Iona is a Dr. Lee Waters a visual wellbeing school. So it's great to see that so many schools are getting in line with Dr. Seligman as well, or Martin Seligman, because he, was American. He's the birth of positive education. It's something we need to look at and to truly be happy. So I've just got some things in here. There's some quotes and things like that. Probably the big area that I've probably focused on in time is gaming. Working with boys, gaming addiction was a huge area of focus for us. How do we navigate this? We had kids that were using video gaming. We were obsessive about it. Just some information, just some research that I did during that time as well, and just talking about the warning signs. What are things that we're watching out for? How we support these families that have kids that are addicted to video gaming. So we now know that this is something that is prevalent in our society, and it's something that is we spend some time on as well. The great thing about video games is we can also support them in how we go about them. So what I've created down here is just a little bit of a gamer's reward chart. We know these guys are very transparent. We know their currency straight away. Their currency is gaming. So this is a great resource that I've used with families for. It's about kids earning 1 hour of video game time. And they have to do different things during the week. It could be making beds. It could be interacting with family at the dinner table. It could be not playing for 3 days in a row, if that's something, rather than just taking that off them and saying, hey, no, I'm the parent, I take this away from you. It causes that frustration and resentment for both parties. Getting kids to earn that time, 1 hour free, hassle-free gaming time, it means that kids are actually enjoying it. So it could be homework. So they get little tokens and they put them up there. Great resource. Again, probably the biggest area that I'm concerned with is bullying in gaming. So being a person, I've been known to play video games a couple of times, but when online, it's not a positive place for children, especially if they've got headsets on. So I've always encouraged parents to if kids have got headsets on, that's fine, but to make sure they're aware that they're muting the other players, because they can be quite ruthless, I suppose, in their feedback of how their son's playing or their child's playing. So here's just some things that they might hear, and there's just some of the signs, getting off the Xbox or the PlayStation and being frustrated straight away, being angry. Those sorts of things happen. So they do speak pretty poorly to each other online. And what I found was that I saw that behaviour in our handball games, and how the kids were playing handball and how they'd be, you're out, and so then the taunting. So that was sort of an area that we needed to focus on. So I've got that there